Hi, my name is Lucia Robles, and I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to make a difference and being part of the solution. Domestic violence affects 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men. Yes, men can be victims too. Domestic violence has no bias as it affects all races and economic groups. It is not just about married couples, but often starts during dating, which is why it is important to know the signs of abuse early and what a healthy and unhealthy relationship might look like. It's common to hear someone say, "Why didn't they leave?" or "Why did they stay?" And the fact is, they want to leave, but they don't think they can leave or that they have a choice. Why? Because domestic violence is about power and control. The abuser tears down their victim's self-esteem, making them feel worthless, stupid, and even crazy. They threaten them with leaving them and that no one else would want them. If there's children involved in the relationship, they use the children to get them to stay, often using them as a tool or threatening to take them if they leave. There are signs of jealousy. Typically, they start controlling who they see, where they go, what they wear, and even controlling them financially. Abusers are often charming as well, and they might slowly start the abuse cycle until they have convinced their victim that the victim's the reason to blame for the way that they are treating and acting towards them. These are just a few signs. All of these don't necessarily happen all at once, and sometimes the abuse is not physical, but more emotional, and sometimes it's a building process that happens over time. So it may start as emotional and lead into more of a physical. It also includes isolation from family and friends, and there's also a cycle of abuse. So the honeymoon stage where everything is perfect, that's usually at the beginning of the relationship, but you'll see this in a domestic violence relationship ongoing. But we call this the honeymoon stage, and this is where everything's really perfect, flowers and lots of affection. I call this the Prince Charming stage myself. Then there's the tension stage where things are a little bit tense. You get name calling and threats. They are intimidated with using anger and even silent treatment, and typically blaming their victim for the way they're treating them. Then there's that explosive stage. This is where the tension that has been building hits a climax, so to speak. This might be breaking things, maybe hurting an animal, verbal abuse, hitting, punching, and often physically hurting their victim, including strangulation or death, each time typically escalating just a little bit further. Then there's the reconciliation stage, and sometimes people say that this is that honeymoon stage again, but this is where they're making up, where they might apologize for what they did, while they're also blaming the victim, saying things like, "If you didn't do that, I wouldn't have had to act that way." And oftentimes in this stage, the abuser may also pretend nothing even happened. This is that crazy that I mentioned earlier. This is what we might call gaslighting. It's when they make the victim feel like nothing happened. I don't know what you're talking about. And they act like everything is back to that honeymoon stage again. And of course, that cycle typically continues to cycle throughout the relationship at different degrees. It's hard to believe anyone would stay, right? In fact, statistics show that on an average, a victim attempts to leave a domestic violent relationship 7 times before leaving for good. You see, this power and control the abuser has over their victim is so powerful because it is mixed with what is thought to be love. But know this, love doesn't hurt, not emotionally or physically. So I want to tell you a story about a girl named Ashley. As I tell the story, I want you to think about all the signs that we just talked about and all the stages. And you'll see throughout this story where those signs and stages are really obvious to you. So first I want to show you a picture of Ashley. So this is Ashley. And she was young and beautiful, as you can see. She was a talented dancer, and she had a loving, caring spirit about her. She was successful at her job and always dreamed of meeting her Prince Charming. She was a daughter, a sister, and a loving mother. So Ashley started dating a guy named Edley in 2006. She had met him at work here in Tampa. They worked together, and he was handsome, smart, and charming. Things seemed to move fast with their relationship, but there were immediate signs of his power and control starting to show. It started from the first weekend they spent together and grew as time went on. That first weekend, Ashley didn't come home for 3 days, and she didn't call or answer her phone for any of her friends or family. They were so worried, especially when her phone said her voicemail was full. Ashley was 21 at the time, so she was an adult. But this was not typical for her, as she was very close to her family and she would never want them to worry. But over what would be just a few months, the relationship got even more serious. Before her family knew it, Ashley and Edley were moving in together. He started isolating her from her family and friends very early on. Her family tried to get to know him, but he made excuses of not wanting to get to know them. When her family would talk about their concerns about her and Edley's relationship, they could see in Ashley's eyes that she had her own concerns. She just wasn't willing to admit it to herself yet. Her family didn't have any proof of the abuse, but they just knew something just wasn't right. Over the next 2 years, tensions between him and her family mounted, and the isolation started to become even more obvious. He wouldn't come to any family gatherings, holidays, or events. He claimed her family didn't like him and that it was their fault. He would make it increasingly difficult for even Ashley to attend family events, often planning for them to attend together, and then last minute starting a fight, so either she would need to go alone or eventually she just stopped coming as well. He had convinced her to stop associating with most of her longtime friends and even severed her relationship with her father for some time. And when you look at this couple, on the outside, they look pretty happy. So Ashley got married. She got pregnant and got married to Edley in 2008. They would break up often in the years to follow, and there were many calls to the police and even arrest at one point. But she kept going back. He would break pictures in the house and even broke the baby's crib at one point. The last year they were here in Florida, she would leave him and move home with her family about every 3 months. It became an obvious cycle to those who loved Ashley. But he would convince her to always go back, saying he was sorry, it would never happen again, things would be better, and that she just needed to make him the priority and not her family, and that then they would be happy. So over this time, he had stripped her of everything that was Ashley, everything that she loved, everything that was about her. Her self-esteem was gone by this point. Every time she would try to get a little bit of Ashley back, he would take it away. He at one point sold her car, so she was dependent on him, since they now only had one vehicle. So Ashley went back to school at one point in the fall of 2012. She wanted to finish her degree. So she had a few classes left at HCC. She finished those up, got her AA, and was accepted to USF to start in January to pursue her degree in education. She wanted to be a high school history teacher. But soon he would take that away too. So in December of 2012, She had already bought her textbooks for school, and he announced that abruptly that they were going to move to California. And the reason he gave was that he had this job promotion offer, and coincidentally, where they were moving in California was not far from where his family lived in San Bernardino. It was a quick timeline, and they had to leave before Christmas. At least so he said. So they sold most of their belongings. They packed their car, now with 2 kids, and drove to California. Her family was so concerned about this move because they just knew a move that far away to California with his, would probably be his final step in isolating her from her family, friends, and any support system that she had. Oh, and then that job that he supposedly had was not a promotion or even a guaranteed job. It, in fact, was just an interview for a job, which he never got. So they ended up living with his mom for a good period of time. And things would get worse as time went on, and they surely never got better. Conversations with her family while she was in California were limited, and often not private because he was always around. It wasn't long before the first distressing call, or should I say text, came. A text of a picture of Ashley covered in a blue liquid and looking scared, worn, and oh so sad. And I'm going to show you the first picture again so you can see a comparison. It was early February 2013, and they were still living with his mom, and Ashley was hiding in the bathroom covered in laundry detergent. He had poured over her and the 2 girls while she held them. Her offense? Calling her little brother on his 10th birthday. He didn't like that even 3,000 miles didn't separate her from her family. Unfortunately, even though her family pleaded with her, she didn't leave that night either. But during that incident, her family would give Ashley contact details for the local domestic violence shelter that was close to her and some information to read about preparing for a safe exit when she did make that decision. So over the next several months, she would try to leave him probably 2 to 3 more times following that night. One time she even flew back to Florida with the girls. But again, unfortunately, she returned due to his threats and manipulation. He would use the children as a bargaining tool, or should I say a controlling tool. And of course, it won't happen again was always the last thing he said. Then in September of 2013, when Ashley called her family, she said she was leaving him and she needed to renew her Florida driver's license so she can open up her own bank account. At that point, her family knew she was serious and was working on an exit plan. They begged her to call the local shelter, as they did before, and told her, if not, please come home to Florida. You can work through it all here. But nope, she said, I have it under control. At least she thought she did. So what her family didn't know is that what prompted her to leave this time was that he had tried to strangle her. They learned this later, but they didn't know anything about it at the time. Otherwise, they surely may have been a little more aggressive in convincing her. And so this really scared her, clearly. And she realized that he may be capable of killing her. So that prompted her move. So she moved from San Bernardino, where she had lived with him. And at that point, I think they had their own apartment at that point. But she moved to LA, where she was now working. She ended up staying with his aunt, who had agreed to keep it a secret from both Edley and the rest of his family for Ashley's safety. Unfortunately, though, he wouldn't let her take the girls. So Ashley knew she had to find a way to get out this time and keep both of her girls as well as herself safe. So she told him she was staying with a friend from work and that they would need to go to therapy to work on their relationship. She would leave the girls with him and visit them on the weekends. When she'd go to visit, she'd lock herself in a room with the girls, and she would use this special lock that his aunt provided to her, so that way she was sure to be safe in the middle of the night. She did this for about 4 weeks while she attended therapy with Edley, and in the meantime, she was looking for an apartment for her and the girls in LA. She was also seeking legal help through her work referral program. And she sounded so healthy when she would talk to her family on the phone now, which at this point was now daily. They even said, "We really think it's for real this time. She's leaving him for good. She sounds like Ashley again." Finally, October 30th of 2013, Ashley would have her own apartment in LA. And about a week later, she would take the girls back to live with her in LA at her apartment. She attended one last therapy session with him where she would tell him they were not getting back together. And at that point, he said he agreed to file divorce papers that she had previously requested. She didn't let Edley know where she was living, although her family would learn he had followed her on several occasions and had figured it out, but she did not know that. Her family had begged her to please still come back to Florida, work through the legal process from here. But they told her, and they told her they didn't think, she could trust him. And they were worried about her safety there in California with no support system. But again, she insisted she needed to stay in California. She had established this life for herself. She had her job. The girls were in school, and she really just wanted to be her own person for the first time in a long time. So fast forward 3 weeks. Yes, just 3 weeks. Edley hadn't seen Ashley or the girls during this time period. And as they approached Thanksgiving weekend of 2013, he wanted to see the girls for the holidays. So the plan was that they would go to a restaurant to spend Thanksgiving, which would be a public place. And Ashley was somewhat comfortable with that. But when he came to pick them up, they had met at his aunt's house. He said the plans had changed slightly, that they would go to his apartment in San Bernardino for dinner instead. This made Ashley very nervous, according to his aunt, but reluctantly she went for the girls' sake. The plan was they would have Thanksgiving dinner, and then he would drive her back to LA with the girls since she had to work the next day. But that didn't quite happen. Instead, he would not drive them back as planned. So she had to stay the night. And no one really knows what happened that night. But when she arrived at work that Friday morning, she was described as tired, nervous, and her clothes looked like she had slept in them. She was only at work a few hours, though, when she was seen rushing back to the parking garage and getting into a car with Edley. She didn't take her wallet or jacket. They were still at her desk, and she didn't tell anyone she was leaving. No one knows what he said to make her so frantic to leave, but that was the last anyone saw her. Her family would try to reach her over the next couple of days, but with no response. Ashley was found 2 days later in his apartment in San Bernardino, brutally murdered. They determined she was killed sometime in the early evening that Friday. She had been beaten in the car and stabbed in his apartment. He had stayed in the apartment with her dead for those 2 days and was seen going in and out at times with blood on his clothes and hands. But when the police arrived on Sunday, December 1st, to find Ashley, Edley was nowhere to be found. He ran for almost 2 months before being captured across the country here in Tampa by the FBI. He was convicted in 2015 of second-degree murder and is serving a 16-year to life sentence in a California prison. Unfortunately, I know this story oh so well because you see, I am Ashley's mother. Excuse me. My daughter Ashley was just 28 years old when she was killed at the hands of somebody that supposedly loved her. It is a tragic end to Ashley's story. She lost her life. Her abuser will spend the rest of his life, hopefully, in prison. And their two little girls, ages 2 and 5 at the time, are left without their mom and dad. This is now how they have to visit her. So, in closing, I want to leave you with this. Leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous time. It's proven. This is when the abuser has lost that power and control. In the U.S. alone, 3 women are murdered by their partners every day. So leaving safely and getting help in doing so is so important. Ashley thought she had it under control. She underestimated his evil. Please, if you are in an abusive relationship, know the signs, leave, but please get professional help. Call your local domestic violence shelter to get help and guidance with a safe exit plan, and create a network or somebody that you can trust to talk to about it. And if you have a family or friend that you suspect is experiencing a domestic violence relationship, be there for them. Know that the decision is ultimately theirs. Don't take that control from them. But they do need to know that there's a way out and that they have a support system. Domestic violence is not a private social problem. It is a global social problem. And we have to be the change by speaking up and not allowing it to be further normalized within our society. I want to thank you, and remember to speak up and be someone's support system. You know, sharing Ashley's story is never easy, but if her story helps others see the reality of what domestic violence is, and it can save just one life, I will continue to share her story in hopes it will save someone else's daughter or son. Thank you.